The moment I stepped onto the witness stand, I knew I was about to end my life. Not with a bullet or a noose, but with something just as irreversible. The truth, or at least what I thought was the truth. The courtroom was colder than I'd imagined. It smelled like old paper and fresher lies. A dozen eyes followed my every move. Jurors leaning forward, reporters scribbling like vultures in suits, and my public defender pretending to believe in me. I didn't look toward the victim's family. I couldn't. Even if I had, I wouldn't have known how to meet their gaze. I was the monster who took someone from them. The clerk asked if I swore to tell the truth. I did, and then I lied with every breath I drew. "My name is Nathan Dorr," I began, my voice echoing louder than expected through the microphone. "I'm 37 years old, and I killed Ezra Kane." "There, I said it." Gasps didn't erupt the way I expected. Courtrooms in real life don't behave like TV dramas. It was more like the world inhaled and held its breath. My lawyer barely flinched. The prosecutor didn't even look up. He already had my words typed in his closing argument. But it wasn't for them that I said it. It was for me. Ezra and I had known each other for 12 years. We weren't friends, but we'd circled the same drain. Odd jobs, fast money, bad decisions. He was a runner for a local fixer, the kind of guy who knew how to disappear a car or a person. I worked as a mechanic with a talent for looking the other way. When we met, Ezra was charming in a reckless way. The kind of man who smiled while robbing you. But something about him always pulled me in, like he knew something I didn't. A magnet for trouble, or maybe a mirror. That night, everything went wrong faster than I could keep up. We were supposed to scare someone. That was it. Some guy named Lorenzo who owed money. Ezra said we'd smash a few windows, leave a message, make it look serious. But Ezra never liked half measures. When we got to the apartment, he was already tweaking, eyes twitching, jaw clenched, fingers dancing with a switchblade. He said the guy wasn't home. I believed him. That was my mistake. I went into the apartment with Ezra, I told the court. He told me we'd rough the place up. I didn't know he'd brought a knife. I didn't know Lorenzo was inside. My voice cracked, just a little, the kind of thing a jury notices. My lawyer looked up for the first time in an hour. "We broke the lock," I continued. Ezra kicked the door open. There was shouting, I remember that, but not much else. That part was true, or true enough. In reality, I remember the shouting too clearly. I remember the sound of glass breaking, a table crashing down, a body hitting the floor. Ezra yelling my name like he wanted me to join in. And then a gurgle. Blood makes a sound when it hits the floor. A soft, sick splash. You don't forget it. I ran. Ezra didn't. The next day, the news said Lorenzo was dead. His neighbors found the body, stabbed 3 times, slumped in his kitchen, eyes wide. The article said police were seeking suspects. There was a blurry photo from a security camera. My blurry face. I called Ezra. No answer. I went to his apartment. Gone. I waited 2 days, then went to the police. That was my second mistake. I was afraid, I told the courtroom. I didn't know what Ezra would do to me, but I couldn't live with what we'd done. I didn't stab Lorenzo, but I didn't stop it. I didn't help. I left him to die. Silence again. Not shock, just judgment. The prosecutor approached, thin lips curling like he'd been waiting to devour me. "You say you didn't stab the victim, but you admit you were there." "Yes." "You admit you helped break in." "Yes." "And yet you didn't call an ambulance. You fled the scene. You didn't turn yourself in until after your face was on the news." "Yes." "Because you were guilty." "I was complicit." He leaned in closer. "You're a mechanic, Mr. Dorr. If I hand you a wrench and someone else bashes in a skull with it, do you share the blame? If I hand it to them knowing what they'll do, yes." "So you knew Ezra would kill him?" "No," I whispered, but my voice betrayed doubt. I told the rest as cleanly as I could, how Ezra vanished, how I came forward, how I gave up everything, my job, my apartment, my name. My confession became the prosecution's favorite toy. My lawyer tried to salvage it by painting me as remorseful. But remorse doesn't play well when someone's dead. The judge called for recess. I stepped down, legs shaking, and sat in the defendant's chair with sweat dripping down my back. The air was thick with failure. Then something strange happened. A bailiff whispered into the judge's ear. The judge frowned. The prosecutor leaned over, whispered something of his own, and the judge went pale. "Mr. Dorr," he said, peering over his glasses, "remain seated." The door at the back of the courtroom opened, and in walked Ezra. I lunged without thinking. Instinct took over. The cold steel cuffs on my wrists made it clumsy, almost pathetic, but I still managed to knock Ezra's chair backward. We both crashed to the floor, me growling, him laughing, always laughing. That was Ezra. Even when things burned, he found a way to feel in control of the fire. Before I could land a hit, 3 deputies burst through the door. They pulled me off him, yanking my arm so hard the cuffs bit into my skin. Ezra stood up, brushed imaginary dust from his jacket, and said, "Someone's got anger issues." I spat blood. My lip had split when I hit the floor. "You set me up." He tilted his head. "Number, you set yourself up. I just gave you the rope." That night, they didn't take me back to my cell. They put me in medical. Not because I was injured. God knows worse had happened to me in the past. But because no one knew what to do with me. I wasn't guilty of murder. But I wasn't innocent either. I had confessed. In detail. I hadn't just implied guilt. I'd crafted it, painted it like a Picasso of remorse. Even the judge had looked ready to sign my soul away. Now the victim was alive, and the prosecution had a mess on their hands. So they isolated me. No contact, no TV, just blank walls and a cot that smelled like bleach and fear. I stared at the ceiling for hours, my thoughts circling one question like vultures around a carcass. Why would Ezra fake his death? 2 days passed before my lawyer returned. His face was a study in exhaustion, disbelief, and maybe somewhere beneath it all, pity. "They're dropping the murder charge," he said without looking at me. "Obviously." I laughed, a dry, broken thing. "Gee, thanks. But they're not letting you go. Not yet." I knew it. Accessory? Perjury? What? He sat down. "They're trying to build a conspiracy case. Fraud, obstruction, tampering with an investigation. The DA's furious. Says your confession wasted resources. They didn't even check if the guy was dead. You confessed. In detail. Because I thought," I stopped myself, "because I believed he was." "Did you kill someone else, Nathan?" I flinched. "No," I said, "but I wanted to." I finally saw the footage that night. Security cam clips from the apartment hallway. Ezra and I breaking in, him walking out, alone. Then a second clip. Ezra helping Lorenzo down the stairs, hours later, face bloodied, but alive. Lorenzo clutching a bag, getting into a car, then nothing. Lorenzo had vanished, no ID, no hospital, no police report, no death certificate. Ezra had cleaned it perfectly, and I had walked into the trap, thinking I was the butcher. Ezra had pulled off a magic trick. Now the question was, why? They let me see him again, under supervision this time. Glass between us, like visiting a zoo animal. He wore the same smug grin. I wore the same jail jumpsuit. "You really don't get it, do you?" he said. "Get what?" "This whole thing. You think you're the center of the story. You always did." "You faked your death," I snapped. "You made me think I was a murderer. I gave you a chance to disappear." "What?" He leaned in. "You were circling the drain, Nathan. Fixing cars for dealers, running errands for scum. You hated your life. That doesn't mean I wanted to be you." "I thought," he said softly, "you'd run. You'd vanish. Start over. But you came back. You confessed. That wasn't part of the plan." I stared at him, stunned. "You planned this for me?" "I planned it for us, but you messed it up." Back in my cell, I couldn't sleep. His words echoed like a riddle I couldn't solve. I remembered our last real conversation before the night. We were in my garage, replacing the brake lines on a Ford that didn't belong to us. "You ever think about starting over?" he asked suddenly. "Every day," I said. He nodded like that was all he needed. "Then say the word." "What word?" "That you're in." "In what?" He didn't answer. He just smiled. That was Ezra. He never told you what game you were playing until the pieces had already moved. 3 weeks later, the charges were officially dropped. The court ruled my confession not credible in light of new evidence. I walked out of county jail with nothing but a plastic bag, a dead phone, and a name that now carried a stain too dark to scrub off. Outside, no one waited. No friends, no family. Just the wind and the ever-present eye of a news camera parked across the street. Ezra, of course, was nowhere to be found. For a while, I tried to go back to normal. I took a job detailing cars under a fake name. I rented a room in a house that smelled like mold and regret. I spoke to no one, but something gnawed at me. Ezra, his vanishing act, his motives, his grin, and Lorenzo, the real victim, still gone, still silent. I needed answers. I tracked down the car from the video, a black Nissan with a dented bumper and one working headlight. It had been reported stolen 6 months before Ezra's little stunt. Found stripped and burned 2 weeks later in Jersey. No prints, no cameras, no witnesses. I pulled the DMV records. The plates had been swapped. Fake registration. Ezra had covered every track. But I found one loose thread, a receipt. Buried in the glove compartment of the wreck was a scrap of paper. Barely legible, but enough. It was a receipt from a roadside motel 3 states over. Date, 2 days after the night. Name used, Eric Lane. An alias Ezra had used before. I drove there. The motel was still standing, barely. The clerk didn't remember faces, but the logbook had the name. Ezra had stayed 3 nights. Then nothing. I scanned local reports. One caught my eye. Unidentified man found unconscious near train tracks. Facial injuries. No ID. Date, same week. Hospital, St. Mary's. I called. No one by the name of Lorenzo, but there was a John Doe discharged 2 weeks later. I found him in a halfway house outside Pittsburgh. Thinner, slower, face still bearing the scars, but alive. It was Lorenzo. He didn't recognize me at first. When he did, he flinched. "I'm not here to hurt you," I said. "I need to know why you disappeared." He hesitated. "Because he told me I'd die if I didn't." "Ezra?" He nodded. "He paid me," Lorenzo whispered. "Paid me to vanish. Said it was insurance." "For what? In case you talked." I staggered back. Ezra hadn't just faked his death. He'd bought silence. Paid a man to disappear, then waited to see what I would do. And when I confessed, he let it play. Lorenzo gave me an address. "If you want him, he's in Baton Rouge. Runs a shop under the name Clive. But don't go looking for justice." "Why not?" "Because Ezra always wins." That night, I sat in my room staring at the address on a napkin. I had a choice. Let him vanish again, or go find the man who turned my guilt into his magic trick. I folded the napkin, lit a cigarette, took the longest drag of my life, then I packed a bag. Baton Rouge smelled like sweat, motor oil, and secrets too old to name. I hadn't been to Louisiana since I was a teenager, but something about the place felt familiar in the worst way, like a memory I didn't ask for coming home to nest in my chest. I followed the address Lorenzo had scrawled. It led me to an auto shop on the outskirts of the city, wedged between an abandoned diner and a liquor store with 3 broken letters in its sign. The shop was called Clive's Custom Performance. The name meant nothing to most, but to me it screamed Ezra. I parked across the street, waited, watched. No cops, no bodyguards. Just Ezra, alive and well, laughing with a customer while wiping grease from his fingers. Like he hadn't torn my life in half. Like he hadn't faked a murder to watch me squirm. I thought about walking away. Then I thought about that wink in the courtroom, and I walked in. He didn't flinch when he saw me. "Coffee's in the back," he said, like I was just another friend dropping in. "You still drink it like mud?" He smiled. "You remembered. Hard to forget poison." He leaned against the counter, folded his arms. "So, you found Lorenzo." I nodded. He let out a low whistle. "Didn't think he'd talk." "He didn't. Not at first." Ezra shrugged. "So what now?" You gonna punch me again? Or kill me this time? I'm not here for violence. Then what? I want to know why. He took a moment, studied me like a chessboard, then nodded toward the garage out back. Let's talk somewhere quieter. We sat on overturned crates, surrounded by engine blocks and the smell of old rubber. He handed me a bottle of water. I didn't touch it. You remember that night, he said, the one you keep calling the night like it was some holy moment? How could I forget? I never planned to kill Lorenzo. That part's true. But I knew he was weak. Knew if I offered him money, he'd vanish. So you set the scene. I gave you an out. I narrowed my eyes. You keep saying that. Because it's true. You hated your life. You hated yourself. I gave you a clean exit. By making me think I was a murderer? By forcing you to choose, he said, eyes locked on mine. You could have disappeared, started fresh. But no, you confessed. Because you wanted to be punished. Don't act like I made you do that. That guilt was yours. He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't right either. You manipulated me, I said. I held up a mirror. Why? Because I was tired of watching you rot in slow motion. I needed to see if you'd finally move. And you call that friendship? I call that truth. I stood up. You don't get to rewrite this. You staged a crime scene, lied to the police, made me think I was insane. And yet, he said calmly, you're still here, standing, breathing, changed. You think this made me better? I think it made you awake. I left the shop without another word. That night, I rented a room with peeling wallpaper and sat on the bed for 3 straight hours, staring at the gun I hadn't admitted to buying. I had brought it for clarity, for control, for finality, but it felt cheap in my hands, like it belonged to a version of me I'd already buried. The next morning, I went to the police. I told them everything. The fake death, the staged photos, Lorenzo's real location, the fraudulent insurance Ezra had claimed under a dead alias, even the threats. They opened a file, but they didn't arrest him. No clear victim, no body, no motive that stuck to the wall. Ezra had danced right between the lines, as always. And I walked away again. Weeks passed. I went home, or what counted as home. Took a new job, low profile, oil changes and tire rotations. I tried to forget him. It didn't work. He was under my skin. Then one night a package arrived, no return address. Inside, a burner phone and a note. Turn it on, 1 call, 1 chance. I should have thrown it away. Instead, I powered it on. It rang 2 minutes later. Ezra, you ruined my game, he said. Took it to the suits. Now I've got to move again. You made me ruin it. He laughed. You always were dramatic. What do you want? To say goodbye. You think this is a joke? Number, I think this was the last lesson. I don't want your lessons. You already took them. You just haven't admitted it yet. Then the line went dead. I smashed the phone, but not before copying the last ping location, Mexico. Of course, it's been 2 years. I haven't heard from him since. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I don't know if I care. I still wake up at night sometimes, sweating through the sheets, hearing the echo of that courtroom door opening, seeing the impossible walk-in. I've tried to forgive myself, and that's the hardest part, because I'm not sure what I'm forgiving. The guilt, the weakness, the fact that I believed him, or the fact that deep down I wanted to. People think crime stories are about justice, or revenge, or closure. But this was about truth. And the truth is this. I confessed to a murder that never happened. I stood on that stand, hands trembling, soul unraveling, and believed I was guilty. Ezra didn't kill Lorenzo, but he killed something else in me. Or maybe he just showed me what was already dead.